Ladies and gentlemen, like an ingrowing toenail, the American government, Wargaming's marketing team are going to places that they're not wanted, in the hopes that what they gain will outweigh the cost of being a cock. And now, there are loot boxes inside loot boxes. I wish I was kidding. And one of the things that can be found within the loot boxes is a chieftain. Now, a chieftain is a name that carries a lot of gravitas because it has, in the past, represented a very, very powerful tank. But this is not the chieftain. It's the chieftain, it's just not the chieftain. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Chieftain Orientation. Let's have a look. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the chieftain. The chieftain of old, the chieftain of legend. It's silly. It's a hold-down monster. This cupola is an anthill on top of Mount Olympus. It is ridiculous. It has damn good mobility, horsepower per ton 16.67, top speed of 46, DPM 2600 is not that amazing. Otherwise, the gun, from what I've heard, is kind of disappointing for a lot of people. But I mean, stats-wise, it shouldn't be 270 base pen, 22.2 APCR. You'd rather have heat, but 140 hash pen is absolute madness. Also, 410 meters of view range. Doesn't hurt. 10 degrees of gun depression. It was a very, very powerful tank. Hull armor was a little disappointing, but there you go. Then, this thing got nerfed, and I believe that was patch 1.22. We can see what happened to it. Whole traverse went down by 5 degrees, big change. Reload time went up by 1.5 seconds, another big change. Pen of the premium shell went down by 11. Mediocre change, but the pen was already not ideal in the first place because you don't have heat, and the top speed went down by 6. This brought it into line. It's still a decent tank, but it's by no means breaking any ground as being ridiculously overpowered. And we can see the statistics now, 2,300 DPM for a tier 10 heavy. Really not good at all. Top speed, it's still got the horsepower per ton, but that top speed does feel a lot more limiting now. So, this is the Clan Wars Reward Chieftain. This is what it looks like visually, right? And this is still a scary tank hold down. Like, you do not want to engage this big old beastie while it is hold down. You will have a bad time. However, the chieftain present in the boxes is the Chieftain Mark 6, which is this, and already, right off the bat, we're looking at the DPM. 3,000? Like, that is serious business. If we look at the highest DPM on any tier 10 heavy tank in the entire game, why is this the case? T-50 heavy, 4-shot autoloader, 3,203 DPM. Just madness, and this Chieftain Mark 6 is only about 200 behind it, so DPM really good. 10 degrees of gun depression as we'd expect, APCR as standard 270 base pen, 1,372 meters per second shell velocity, which is very, very good. And actually, if you go to premium, it actually gets worse by 22, but that's not noticeable, not gonna make a difference at all. 310 pen though is really disappointing. It's gonna have a lot of trouble with tanks like Mouse, E100, those heavily armored tanks that you only want heat for. It's not gonna do well against. Now the top speed is actually better than the Clan Wars Chieftain by 2. However, the power to weight being 14.42 as opposed to 16.67, it is going to feel noticeably slower. And also, less aware, 390 meters of view range on a tier 10 heavy, I don't know what I just did, is bad. To be clear, I want to put you in no doubt, that is bad. Chieftain, Clan Wars Chieftain, 410, really good. 390, bad. Hit points are the same, and on the Chieftain Mark 6, ladies and gentlemen, we get this same absolute boon of 140 millimeters of hash pen. That is madness. And one thing that I want to point out as well, because you have to keep this in mind, because it is genuinely a very significant advantage. Ammo capacity. See this right here? 64. Clan Wars Chieftain, 40 shells. 40 shells, 440 alpha damage, as opposed to the 400 which is found on this tank. You might think there's not that big a difference. It is. 64 shells is going to make this tank feel a lot more comfortable. You can take a lot more HE, engage in a few blind shots. This tank is going to feel more comfortable than the Clan Wars Chieftain in that regard, most certainly. But what this really comes down to in terms of engaging this tank is meant to be a hold-down beast with 10 degrees of gun depression, right? But if we look at the two of these tanks, Clan Wars on the right, loot box on the left. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chieftain Mark 6, that cupola is astounding. That will be penned by a KV2. You can hash that with a Death Star. You can pen it with your average pen, high pen HE at tier 10. Like, this cupola is abysmal. It is astoundingly bad, which is kind of a good thing. Because this tank that everyone's going to be acquiring and seeing, learning it out in tier 10, has legitimate weak spots. That cupola is a massive one, but also above the gun, right here. Right above the gun, 240? Yeah, you bet your booty you can pen that at tier 10. And also, keeping up the trend of chieftains having poor hull armor. But when I say poor hull armor, there's poor hull armor, right? Chieftain on the right here, we're seeing 240 on the upper plate, 230 on the lower plate. And then there is Chieftain Mark 6 hull armor. This lower plate is astounding. Having this armor at tier 10 is like using a sieve as a submarine window. This is hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. This is unholy. So what do you need to know? What's the takeaway here? Well, when you're engaging a chieftain, don't be in something that they can pen with HE, because 140 HE pen is... And if you aren't a chieftain, take HE shells, because my god. Main takeaway is bad hull armor, shoot them in the hull if you can. Both of them are very weak in the ass, but the Clan Wars Chieftain has like 50 effective, whereas Chieftain Mark 6, 25, you can pin it at HE with tier 2 vehicles. But the main thing that you should walk away with is something that's useful, alright? You may get the names mixed up in your head. Chieftain Mark 6, T95 Chieftain. There's a lot of chieftains in the game nowadays. What can you take away which is going to allow you to distinguish one from the other? Well, there are multiple ways. One of the easiest is to count the observation ports. The Clan Wars Chieftain has 3 of these ports. 1, 2, 3. Whereas the Chieftain Mark 6 has only 1. So if you see only 1 observation port on the upper hull, you know that the hull is a lot weaker, the cupola is weak, and you know you've got a pinnable spot right above the gun right there. You can also tell by the size of the cupola and the size of this thing right here, which is not modeled at all. If you shoot this, shell will go straight through, which could be funny if you hit some dickhead sitting behind it. Send me in the replay if you do that, that would be hilarious. But yeah, this thing is not modeled at all, you can't hear it, but it is very visually distinct, right? So if you see that, you know you're shooting at the weaker armored chieftain. If you see these 3 viewports, or you don't see this, you know that this chieftain, if it's hold down, is basically God to you. You should bow down and worship, essentially. And that concludes our chieftain orientation. Thank you for joining me. Do follow me on Twitch, link in the description. I hope to see you there. Tell me that this video I sent you, and I will give you some points in chat.
And his warp skills are legendary, brutal stuff, like he does a thing and screws it up. But the World of Tanks is kindergarten, childish software, real men play armored warfare, PvE. And his business model is actually insane, making money off of stuff but doesn't have to play a game. Also his leadership skills are dope as fuck. He says YOLO up for